Good morning. Welcome to Sasakawa Peace Foundation USA Policy Briefing Series. I am Satohiro Akimoto, President and Chairman of Sasakawa Peace Foundation USA. Thank you very much for joining. I'm delighted to see you all. Today's featured speaker is Minister Yoko Kamikawa of newly formed Suga administration. I'm grateful that she agreed to speak to our friends in Washington, despite her unimaginably tight schedule. She'll be introduced by Dr. Atsushi Sunami, President of Sasakawa Peace Foundation. I am particularly delighted to have a longtime friend, Minister Kamikawa. We spent 2 years together in the same graduate dorm at Harvard when she was a graduate student at the Kennedy School. Lots of fond memories. Ambassador Melanne Verveer is discussant. She is director of Georgetown University Institute for Women, Peace, and Security. She was the very first US ambassador at large on global women's issues. She worked very closely with President Barack Obama and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to integrate women's rights and participation into US foreign policies. She also served as US representative on the UN Commission on the Status of Women. Ambassador Verveer worked very closely with the Japanese counterpart to elevate global women's issue as one of the top priorities when Japan hosted APEC in 2010. In my view, Ambassador Verveer planted seed for Prime Minister Abe's initiative to advance women's rights and participation in Japanese community. She's a member of Sasakawa Peace Foundation USA's advisory board. Honored to have her. Dr. Sunami, please go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Atsushi Sunami, the president of Sasakawa Peace Foundation here in Tokyo, in Japan. And this morning, I'm privileged and honored to have to introduce Minister Kamikawa to our friends in Washington. Minister Kamikawa was elected for the first time to the House of Representatives in year 2000 from her constituency in Shizuoka Prefecture. And since then, she has been serving various important posts in the various cabinets. First, she's been appointed as a Parliamentary Vice Minister for International Affairs and Communications under the third Koizumi cabinet in 2005. And in 2007, she's been appointed as a Minister of State for Gender Equality and National and Social Affairs under the Abe cabinet, followed by the Fukuda cabinet. And since then, she has been appointed as a Minister of Justice in 2014 under the second Abe cabinet. So it's very honored to have Minister Kamikawa, who is now serving as a third term as a Minister of Justice under the newly formed Suga cabinet here with us. So without further ado, I'd like to ask Minister Kamikawa for the introductory remarks.
Thank you very much. And Minister Kamikawa, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Sunami, introducing me for my very long career in the political field. Good morning, everyone. I am Yoko Kamikawa, Minister of Justice. I'm so grateful for this valuable opportunity. I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Akimoto, President of the Sasakawa Peace Foundation USA, and Dr. Sunami, President of the Sasakawa Peace Foundation, for hosting this event and introducing me. It's a great honor to share a wonderful time with Ambassador Verveer and Dr. Susan Farr, my professor at Harvard. Last month, the Suga administration was inaugurated, and I was appointed as Minister of Justice for the third time. Before I start, I would like to talk about my experience of studying in the United States, which inspired me to pursue a political path. 30 years ago, when I worked at the Mitsubishi Research Institute, I had a chance to participate in a 2-year master's public policy program at Harvard Kennedy School of Government. At that time, trade friction over beef and oranges had become a major issue between the two countries. My primary interest was trans-border data flows, an issue related to ICT advancement and tariffs based on goods. My experience in American society has had a major impact on my self-perception. I was brought up in a homogeneous society, and I was unaware of how heavily influenced I was by my background. My experience in the United States was an important turning point to say that I was freed from such influence and I was awakened to live as an independent individual. I took a class with Dr. Farr and submitted a report titled Kamikawa Yoko's Political Campaign Plan, like a bouncing ball. This may have been my starting point as a politician. Since then, my vision as a politician has been to create a society in which everyone can play a role in, and in which everyone can thrive without feeling alone. This is in line with the fundamental principle of human security advocated by former UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Sadako Ogata. Human security is achieved when all individuals, particularly vulnerable people, have equal opportunities to enjoy all rights, fully develop their human potential, and have the right to be free from fear and to be free from want. The new infectious disease, COVID-19, poses an equal risk of infection to everyone around the world. I believe that human security and universal health coverage has become more important due to COVID-19. The harm caused by COVID-19 has become a global issue. The impact has been profound of the socially vulnerable, such as the poor, women, and minorities, and the degree differs by community. I would like to discuss the creation of a diverse and inclusive society as the disruption caused by COVID-19 is becoming a long-term policy issue. So I would like to talk about the economic impact of COVID-19 on women in Japan. COVID-19 affects the employment and income of many people, but its impact depends on the social and economic status. In response to the spread of COVID-19 from March to early May this year, the Japanese government declared a nationwide state of emergency and took some measures such as school closures and encouraged people to stay at home. Companies suspended their work, but only a small number of large companies were able to shift to telework. Its impact on business harmed the most vulnerable workers. the number of employed women decreased more significantly than men because women tend to engage in more part-time positions than men, and many of them work in service-based industries such as hotels, restaurants, travel, and retail industries. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the vital role of the essential workers. They are supporting the economy and the needs of the general public. Unlike office workers, they don't have enough remote work options, and they are also characterized by high risk of infection. In order to address social vulnerability caused by COVID-19 over the long term and to create a secure working environment, following approaches are necessary. First, we must review essential workers' working styles and working conditions, and we must also expand and strengthen measures against COVID-19 for them. For example, prevention measures of infectious diseases for frontline healthcare workers should be given top priority since they are combating infectious diseases all the time. At the same time, measures for suppliers are also very important since they bring the necessary equipment to medical institutions, welfare facilities, retailers, etc. Second, we must promote working environment with less contact for essential workers. Digital transformation and remote work were promoted as emergency measures in response to the spread of COVID-19. We have to establish the technological infrastructure and adapt to the remote work style in order to keep the economy going. We must also take strong measures to support and revitalize the medium-sized enterprises, which are the driving force of the Japanese economy. Third, we must secure human resources in areas such as IT and nursing care that are needed to cope with COVID-19. It is also important to educate and develop human resources so that people who have lost their jobs because of COVID-19 can gain employment opportunity in new fields. Now, I would like to talk about gender-based violence and health damages. As COVID-19 spread, I have formulated proposals to the government and worked hard to ensure sufficient budget through 4 of the parliamentarians' federations that I chair. First, a contingency plan for management of COVID-19 should be developed. We have to learn out lessons from the first wave and be fully prepared for this fall and winter when flu and COVID-19 are expected to occur. All levels of government, both central and local, must effectively coordinate their responses and establish a crisis management and risk communication system, as well as a PCR testing system and a medical supply system. Second, as the chair of the Generic Pharmaceuticals Parliamentary League, I recommended securing vaccines for COVID-19, as well as supply chains and cooperating internationally. Third, I recommended securing medical equipment such as ECMO and ventilators, as well as PPE and the development of human resources. Fourth, I proposed to address the new challenges of secondary health damage as a result of prolonged stay-at-home period, such as the increase in domestic violence, suicide, depression, and dementia among the elderly people. UN Women has called it the shadow pandemic to alert countries around the world. In Japan, the number of consultations on domestic violence was up by 20% in the second quarter compared to the previous year. The new domestic violence consultation service started in April, which is operated in 10 foreign languages, has received more than 20,000 consultations in a 5-month period. Japanese universities, the University of Tokyo, the University of Tsukuba, Keio University, and others have already begun research on the physical and mental effects of restrictions on socializing caused by COVID-19. In order to solve problems based on these research results, the government, local governments, companies, research institutes, and the civil society are working together to promote public-private partnership. Last month, as a chair of the Health and Community Member Federation, I made urgent recommendations on preventing secondary damage to health caused by COVID-19. I also presented them to the government, and we are working toward budgeting. With regard to the risk of secondary health damage, Japan intends to collect and analyze data from other countries and share knowledge on countermeasures. We plan to propose the creation of a platform to address as a global issue the medium to long-term impact of COVID-19 on people's bodies and minds. In fact, I am currently Japan's representative of WPL, Women Political Leaders, one of the international networks of women parliamentarians. Last June, Japan hosted the WPL Summit 2019 for the first time in Asia. Hosted by the House of Representatives, 422 female political leaders from 87 countries gathered and discussed 3 main areas: women's health, education, and the environment. The WPL Summit compiled a declaration of outcome. At the G20 Osaka Summit, I handed it to Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in front of nearly 30 leaders, including US President Donald Trump, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Regarding the global issues caused by COVID-19, I intend to continue international discussions through WPL on what women leaders should do. Lastly, I would like to discuss political leadership for diversity and inclusion. We cannot predict when the COVID-19 pandemic will end. How should the international community respond? it is a major challenge for political leaders. The key to addressing this challenge is a human security approach. We must reflect the perspectives of the vulnerable people into decision-making. We must also develop inclusive frameworks at all levels of risk assessment and management, as well as economic and social welfare policies. The Ministry of Justice has a wide range of mandates, including immigration control, prison management, and the protection of human rights. To address the challenges of COVID-19 in all these areas, no one can be left behind, and measures need to be taken that reflect on diversity and inclusivity. So far, we have been very successful in preventing outbreaks in our detention facilities, but we need to be well prepared for the second or third wave in autumn and winter. This is why it was one of my first instructions to my staff as the Minister of Justice was to identify current challenges and to develop a contingency plan to enhance organizational and operational responses. Japan and the United States are facing similar challenges in such detention facilities. Actually, it's a global challenge. How to ensure human rights and the well-being of detainees is something that Japan and the United States can explore together. We can learn from each other and share our knowledge and expertise with the global community. In this regard, I would like to touch upon the initiative of the Ministry of Justice, which I named Shihou Gaiko, in English, Justice Affairs Diplomacy. My top priority of this initiative is the hosting of the UN Crime Congress and the Youth Forum in Kyoto next February and March. The UN Crime Congress is the biggest conference of the United Nations in the field of crime prevention and criminal justice. The success of the Kyoto Congress is, of course, very important, as Prime Minister Suga emphasized in his statement at the UN General Assembly last week. The Crime Congress brings together more than 3,000 participants from all over the world. Such participants include the Ministers of Justice, Prosecutors General, and high-level officials of government, as well as practitioners and members of civil society. Next year in March, it will be held in a hybrid format utilizing ICT. It will be an important opportunity to strengthen international cooperation and renew solidarity to promote the rule of law towards achieving our common goal of building resilient and inclusive societies. What is equally important as the Crime Congress, in my view, is the Youth Forum, which I serve as its special envoy. The Youth Forum will take place just a few days before the Kyoto Congress at the same venue. It provides youth from across the globe with a unique opportunity to exchange ideas and express views on the topics relevant to the Kyoto Congress. The youth inspire us towards our common goals and they will become the torch bearers of the democratic and human rights-based values we promote. Empowering young generations is our primary responsibility, particularly during this uncertain period. In place special importance on sending a strong message to the youth through the Kyoto Congress and the Youth Forum. I wish to invite and encourage them to reflect on human security and to actively engage in building peaceful and rule-based societies by overcoming and embracing social and cultural differences. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize the importance and my commitment to investing in the youth. My experience at the Harvard Kennedy School has been one of the strongest assets throughout my political career. I met so many talented young students, including Dr. Akimoto, and developed a strong network. It is my commitment as a special envoy of the Youth Forum to make it an equally worthy experience for the youth participants. I strongly welcome participation of youth from the United States. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Minister Kamikawa, for your wide-ranging, candid remarks on the subject matters under your responsibility. I am sure that you're going to play a major role not only in Japanese politics, but Japanese diplomacy. So good luck to you.
Thank you.
I'd like to turn to Ambassador Melanne Verveer for her comment. Ambassador Melanne Verveer.
Thank you so much, Minister Kamikawa, for your compelling remarks, and congratulations on your appointment as minister in Prime Minister Suga's new cabinet. Even though you are only one of 2 women in the cabinet, I know you feel a great sense of responsibility, as you acknowledged on your appointment, in enabling women to demonstrate their competence and to open opportunities for them. You have been a longtime leader in advancing diversity and inclusion in Japan, and as you told us today, that extends to dealing with COVID-19 as well. So it is a real honor for us to have you with us. Let me touch on a few of the topics that you raised. We know that COVID-19 does not differentiate among those to whom it attacks. It is an equal opportunity attacker, but it has had a disproportionate impact on women, and that is true the world over. Moreover, its toll has exposed the deep inequalities in our societies. Policy responses to the crisis, therefore, must be inclusive to account for women's unique needs, responsibilities, and perspectives. As the majority of healthcare workers, women have been on the front lines, exposed to greater risk of infection. As you pointed out, the provision of much needed protective equipment, testing, and more is critical for health workers, as well as for other essential workers, if the infection is to be controlled. And I might add parenthetically that in the United States, we have failed to adopt a national strategy, and the contagion continues to attack large numbers of our people as a result. Secondly, women have been among the hardest hit economically. Some economists have referred to this reality as a she-cession as opposed to a recession, because so many women have been significantly affected by job and income losses. As you noted, in Japan, the decline in the number of employed women is much worse than that of men, as they more significantly make up the ranks of the non-regular, the part-time employees in labor markets or are in services hardest hit by the pandemic. The so-called Womenomics policy adopted by Prime Minister Abe to boost the Japanese economy brought more women into the workplace and enabled a jobs rebound. Unfortunately, much of the labor participation was in non-regular, part-time, or contract jobs that afford few benefits, jobs in which women are overrepresented. Non-regular work is highly insecure and likely to end at the first sign of an economic downturn. And this is exactly what happened with COVID-19. And as you point out, women as a result have been disproportionately impacted by the economic crisis. More than 1 million part-time workers have lost their jobs. Women's central role in the economy is an area that will need to be a priority for Japan's economic recovery, as it will be for other nations. Career enhancing, regular jobs, availability of childcare, promotion of women's entrepreneurship, cornerstones of Womenomics are also core to the recovery from the COVID-19 crisis and building a stronger economic future. As you have also noted, Minister, expanding ICT for greater telework is an essential tool for economic, political, and social progress, even in the pandemic. Kathy Matsui of Goldman Sachs Japan, I'm sure is well known to you, said that she hoped that the new Prime Minister would propose a rigorous digital strategy for the government and urge companies to adopt more advanced technology. She asked, how are we going to boost productivity without investing in very clear IT transformation strategy for the future? And the deputy director of the German Institute for Japanese Studies in Tokyo was quoted as saying, teleworking could help not only to contain the coronavirus, but empowering working mothers and demonstrate that it is possible to work from home productively, as millions are doing around the world at this time. Third, you also mentioned domestic violence, depression, and other health impacts. This again is a worldwide COVID-19 phenomena. Domestic violence has been called a pandemic within a pandemic. So great is the uptick in domestic violence. The biggest risks have been within households with lockdowns, job loss, and mounting childcare burdens. This requires assistance to the victims of domestic violence, but often the demand overload, COVID restrictions on mobility, or other obstacles have led to an inadequate response. As you pointed out, the demand for consultation services in Japan increased by more than 20,000 in a 5-month period. This will continue to be a challenge for months, if not years to come. COVID-19 has also exacerbated the burden for women who continue to bear a disproportionate responsibility for housework and the care for children. Schools and childcare centers closed, and women receive no extra help from anyone in their households. The unaddressed inequalities manifested in the lack of burden sharing have been significantly exposed during COVID-19. According to research, women in Japan spend 4 times as much time on unpaid labor than men. Today, it is an evidence-based case that policy responses are more effective and are when they are the result of diverse and inclusive leadership. In 2003, a goal was adopted by Prime Minister Abe to put more women in positions of leadership, indeed, to raise the ratio by 30%. The results, however, have been disappointing, slightly less than 10% in government, behind corporate management that is less than 12%. Achieving the goal has now been delayed to 2030. Greater diversity in the diet, more women leaders like the minister, would lead to more progress for all of society. As U.S. Justice Ginsburg, who recently passed away, said, "Women belong in all the places where decisions are being made." Women are underutilized as a resource, and this continues to be true the world over. In some places, it is more pronounced than others. Japan's ranking on the World Economic Forum Global Gender Gap report is 121 out of 153. Now you might ask, why does the World Economic Forum put out an annual gender gap report? Because in countries where the gap is closer to being closed, where the talents of all the people are more utilized, those countries are far more economically competitive and prosperous. So closing the gender gap benefits not just women, it benefits all of society. Japan's women are among the most highly educated and most talented in the world, and they have the ability to make a much greater contribution to their society. Diversity and inclusion are an advantage politically, economically, and socially, and certainly in dealing with COVID-19 today and in the months and perhaps years to come. It's been said that within crises are the seeds of opportunity. The COVID-19 crisis could be an opportunity for leaders everywhere to seriously address the existing inequalities and deep-rooted problems in order to build back better. It will, however, require leadership and commitment, the kind of leadership that Minister Kamikawa has demonstrated in Japan and internationally. The challenges ahead require women and men working together, bringing their respective experiences, talents, and perspectives to the task at hand. Diversity and inclusion create far better outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Verveer, for your thoughtful and warm and yet constructively critical comments. So thank you very much. Minister Kamikawa, would you like to respond to Ambassador Verveer's comment?
Oh, thank you very much, Ambassador Verveer, that you mentioned about the World Economic Forum's index, Gender Gap Index. Our position is now the very low level of among the many international community. But we are still struggling to uplift our status, not only the economic, but also the political field. And I would like to talk about some Womenomics the Abe cabinet has been achieved so far. And still we have a very great difficulty to tackle with it. Well, Dr. Akimoto mentioned about that I was appointed as Minister of State of Gender Equality in the first Abe cabinet and the subsequent Fukuda cabinet, aiming to increase the percentage of women in leadership positions to 30% by 2020. It's a very global target. The Charter of Work-Life Balance and guidelines for action have been formulated as economic and social infrastructure for women's active participation. During my cabinet, during my ministerial position, I was signed the code. The trend towards women's active participation in society has changed dramatically since 2012, when the second Abe administration was formed. This administration put women's active participation as a core of Japanese economic growth that you mentioned, and advancing efforts in Womenomics. In 2013, Prime Minister Abe met with the heads of the 3 economic organizations, such as Keidanren. In front of the media, he requested the inclusion of women in the board of directors and the appointment of women. After obtaining their support, a series of legislation was enacted. In 2016, the law concerning the promotion of women participation in work life was enacted. This required large companies to formulate plans for women's active participation in the industry. And incentive measures, such as evaluating additional points in bidding, were implemented. In terms of the political field, the law for the promotion of gender equality was enacted in 2018, 2 years ago. We, the women politicians, are very much struggling to pass the legislation, very much. The law encourages the political parties to equalize the number of gender candidates. To ensure that women raising children can continue to work, Japan has implemented a zero waiting list campaign, which includes the rapid development of daycare centers, the prohibition of overtime, the reform of working styles, the raising of men's children at home, and the commitment of top management. As a result, there has been a significant increase in the employment rate of women. Unfortunately, however, the 30% target for 2020 set by Womenomics has not been achieved in both business and politics. I have been thinking about what should be done to increase the number of female leaders. It takes time to change the consciousness of society. It's a very hard work to change the mind. That is, the consciousness of women and men, and also the consciousness of women as well. In that sense, I think it is very much important to put more effort into education and the establishment of the role models. Currently, my party, the LEP, has established the Women Leaders School to train and support women who aim to become politicians. Opportunities for Diet members and local assembly members to exchange views and learn also are very important. It is important to expand the scope of women's participation in politics and foster powerful candidates through such opportunities. In July this year, women parliamentarians and 200 women local legislators held an online seminar. I gave a lecture on the efforts being made in the field of sexual violence. The women spoke courageously about the sexual violence they suffered. And 3 years ago, when I was a Minister of Justice for the second time, the statutory penalty of the sexual offenses were increased. Currently, the Ministry of Justice has been conducting further deliberations on the penal code. And in June this year, the government of Japan decided on the policy of intensively strengthened victim support and education. As a chair of the Parliamentary League, I have created a platform between politics, government, and NGOs and have been engaged in discussions. Women's voices have become the driving force of society. What I learned during my study in the United States is that life has a variety of work styles and a variety of career development. Harvard had a mid-career course with students of different generations and occupations. And I was very much inspired by such educational atmosphere. So I would like to do my best as a Minister of Justice, one of two women cabinet members among 21 ministerial positions, and also a member of the Diet, so that I would like to take a role model for many women. And at the same time, I would like to foster young people who will be the leaders of the next generation. Thank you for the Ambassador. Very nice comments on you. And I would like to continue the discussion so far as in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'd like to open up the floor for a Q&A session. The first question goes to Professor Susan Farr. Professor Farr has been a professor at the Weatherhead Center for International Affairs. She was also a longtime director for US-Japan program at Harvard. Professor Farr.
When Kamikawa came to me as a young student, she told me that her dream was to pursue a political career. And we worked together planning her first campaign. Her slogan was, "Watch the bouncing ball." And I was so impressed by the energy that she put and her talent into developing a political. So it is a great pleasure to see. I wanted to return to this very important question of creating more political and economic leaders in Japan from among women. And I know that Prime Minister Abe received so much international recognition for Womenomics, and he set the goal of trying to have 30% of management positions held by women by 2020. But as we know, when surveys were done, they had no women or very few women even in the pipeline for management positions. So I'd appreciate your thoughts on what could be done to incentivize firms to promote women to management.
I would like to thank Dr. Farr for your valuable comments. And I remembered the first participate in your class at Harvard 30 years ago. I feel like a student as if I took a class of Dr. Farr about 30 years ago, right now. Thank you so much. And mention about my report, my political campaign. For the first time, that at that moment I haven't decided to run the office, but thinking about the previous years, maybe I have a very strong will to run the office in future. I have been very much struggling to take a position of National Diet members. I took 7.5 years to run the office and achieve the first position, 2000. And it's a very big event for my life, but I recall my memory, and then I met you at that moment, who was vigorously research on the Japanese politics, especially the women's participation in politics. And so you are a kind of a role model for me. Thank you so much. And your question is very important, but very difficult question. I always question me, why the Japanese society do not admit women rather than the men. That Ambassador Verveer and I also mentioned about the Global World Economic Forum's index, GDI, Gender Gap Index. Our ranking is very decreased every year. When I was position of the gender equality and social affairs, the position was 116, but now 141. And especially the political field, it's very hard for women to run the office by supporting the families. And also in their minds, well, we should, if the women would like to run the office, but still they are thinking in mind that women herself have a kind of a stereotype of image of unconscious bias. So that I mentioned about the education. Education is a very important power to empower the women, and especially the role model to encourage women to run the office or to take the high level of a position, leadership positions of not only the economy, but also political fields. So in my position, women cabinet members are very few, but I do my best to dedicate to the younger women who would like to be a politician in the future. So my role is very, very important and responsible on my shoulder, the dream of women in many fields.
Thank you very much. Next question goes to Ms. Suzanne Basala, President of the Japan Council.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, and good morning from California. That was a really inspirational talk, covered a lot of very important information, and really reinforced for me just how global and spontaneous but universal this experience has been from the pandemic. So thank you for everything you shared. I have two questions, if I can. One is, there was a lot of reporting a couple months ago, especially about how nations that had female political leaders had very solid responses to the pandemic and very effective responses. And I think you've touched on the importance already of diverse and inclusive leadership for making good decisions. And I think we could say that a nation where a woman is a leader reflects a diverse and inclusive approach to leadership. But I wonder if you think there are any characteristics of women leaders that make them particularly effective during the pandemic, in the crisis management and the pandemic management, like yourself. And my second question is, and it may be a little early to tell, but I'm interested if you could talk. It was fascinating to hear about the government initiatives in Japan to deal with inequality and to deal with some of the issues on gender. What are you seeing in the nonprofit sector, and especially from community-based organizations? And are you seeing any changes or trends in activity? I know a lot of the nonprofits are led by women, especially in Japan, and so interested in any of your observations on that sector. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your comment and also the question, two topics. The first one is that I respond to your question is, I would like to mention about the, in the 2011, we had a very great East Japan earthquake. There was almost no perspective of women in disaster response. So it became clear that, for example, evacuation shelters did not give any consideration to the needs of women and child rearing. So women's activities and government policies have been linked to promote women's participation in disaster prevention in the region and review stockpiles and evacuation centers. So that this is one example of the risk management in the COVID-19, and also as well as the very great earthquake Japan faced 2011. And the women's perspective are very much important, and the society are recognize how important the women's perspective are. So I would like to emphasize the women's power and also perspective, and to make a policy making, gathering the women's voices much than men, I think. The second question that you mentioned, not only regarding the COVID-19, but also in many policy fields, many fields in our society, the non-governmental organizations' position and viewpoint are very much important than before, previous years. So I tried to put the platform, not only the government and politicians, as well as private sectors like companies and also civil societies, get together and different perspectives. I mean, the variety of perspectives are very much important to solve the difficult questions. So that I tried to make a platform together, and then exchange informations and the perspectives, and then make a kind of one common principles or policies, get together and forming the policies. Especially in Japan, the government made the policies, and also the political sphere, we make a law, but we need voices from different types. So in order to solve the problems, the environment, healthcare, and some other things, many fields, civil societies, and especially the women's side, are very much important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a lot more questions, but we have come to the point where we need to close the event. But with the concurrence of Minister Kamikawa, I'd like to ask two more questions, extending the event 5-10 minutes. And first one is from Ambassador Kirk Ton. His question was, on the global stage, sometimes men leaders step up on these issues, parenthesis Abe, and sometimes they step back, parenthesis Trump. Essentially, what he was asking was that how can you sustain this promotion, advancement of women's rights and participation across the cultures and national boundaries? How to sustainably you can work on it? That was the gist of the question.
Well, I mentioned in my speech, mentioned about the WPL, Women Political Leaders Network worldwide. It's my participation is ambassador of WPL, and made a WPL summit and set the agenda like social welfare, education, and environment. We get together and discuss about the agenda, set the agenda from the different countries. In my own capacity, not just Japanese politician, but politician, but in my responsibility. So I would like to keep that kind of platform, not only domestically, but also internationally. So I would like to make some kind of platform to talk about continuously about the today's topic. For example, COVID-19 and the impacts on the women, because it's not only the short-term issue, but also the long-term issue. So I would like to recommend to make another session on the same topic, but a different perspective. Dr. Akimoto, could you do that?
Thank you very much. Of course, I'm going to mark the event on my calendar. The
Okay.
last question, I'd like to combine two questions together from two women. Ms. Shihoko Goto of the Wilson Center and Ms. Wendy Cutler, Vice President of Asia Society Policy Institute. It's about women and the technology. And if I may read Wendy's question, I understand that the Prime Minister Suga will be establishing a new digital agency to help promote the digital technologies in the Japanese economy and society. Will gender issues be focus of work of this new agency, particularly given the importance of remote work for women in the workforce? I think you touched upon it a little bit, but I would appreciate if you could elaborate on it.
Well, the Suga new cabinet emphasizes to organize the new agency on the digitalization, to encourage digital society. And digital transformation in government and public sector is a pressing issue and needs to be dealt with the governmental approach. My minister, for example, the Ministry of Justice has taken steps in this regard. And at the moment, over 40 procedures and services have been digitalized and available online. The Ministry of Justice has made effort to develop remote working environment. The staff are working using the digital equipment and has encourages its officials to work from home and utilize teleconference in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19. And furthermore, last month, the Ministry of Justice established project team. I started the project team to explore the utilization of artificial intelligence, AI. I look forward to seeing the outcome of its strategic consultation on the use of new technologies in the future. I mentioned about the Ministry of Justice performance on this field, but in order to improve the efficiency of public services, as well as the quality of life of the people in Japan, I would like to further promote digital transformation. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. It's past 11 p.m. in Tokyo time, and no doubt that you've been having incredibly busy days every single day. And I really appreciate it, you taking time to be with us and the friends in Washington. Would you like to have a final words to close the event?
So 2 minutes, okay?
Any minutes is fine.
Okay. Well, I'm very much delighted to attend such a nice event today. The time is 11 p.m., but it's a kind of a day. Before closing this event, I would like to say not few words, but about how young people is essential to build a diverse and inclusive society. I would like to emphasize the younger generation. As you all are aware, the situation surrounding the world has dramatically changed over the past 30 years. The next generation is in the position to tackle new global issues, the same as we are currently facing the pandemic of COVID-19. To deal with the new global issues, the international cooperation is indispensable, and the new generation will have to deal with this. In that sense, the empowerment of the new generations necessary so that they contribute as global citizens. As I mentioned earlier about the Kyoto Congress Youth Forum, it is very much important for new generation with various backgrounds to exchange opinions and learn from each other. I would be very delighted to invite young people from the United States to attend the Kyoto Congress Youth Forum. As a Minister of Justice and as a politician, I will dedicate myself to achieve a society in which no one is left behind, and which is inclusive under the rule of law. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Mr. Akimoto, who enthusiastically organizes this event, and Ambassador Verveer, who kindly accepted as a commentator to contribute this event, and my professor, Susan Farr. I conclude my speech by making appreciation to the audience who participates online and all those who have cooperated to prepare for this event. Thank you very much once again, and I look forward to meeting you all somewhere in the near future. Thank you from Tokyo.
Thank you very much. You have so many important tasks and responsibility, and they are not easy, obviously. And we all wish you good luck, and also we'd like you to further deepening ties between Tokyo and Washington from the viewpoint of women politicians. Well, thank you very much for joining us, everybody. I know that there are many events in Washington focused on the policy issues, and everybody's so busy. But I am encouraged to see so many people tuning in and listening. So thank you very much, and I hope that our event was worthwhile for you to attend, and I'm sure it was. And we will invite Minister Kamikawa back sometime in the future. So thank you very much for your participation. Thank you, Dr. Sunami, and everybody. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.